The transport Dorchester set forth upon her dangerous mission north. Grim winter rode the seas with her, and cold and gray the sky. There were 4 men of God aboard, to do the service of the Lord, to share the life of fighting men, and shrive them must they die. 4 chaplains, Catholic and Jew, and Protestants by chance were 2, Poling and Fox and Washington and Alexander Good. 4 men of God, enough to say who questions which was which today. 4 men of God who shared the dream of worldwide brotherhood. They did not preach the narrow way, they lived with men from day to day. They understood their smiles and tears, their every joy and care. The human heart they understood, found in the worst a share of good, and tried to do for God those deeds which men beseech in prayer. The Dorchester's clean decks they trod, 4 gracious, humble men of God, who served both Braid and Dungaree as though they were the same, who never questioned post or place, religion, color, caste, or race, of any who in earnest need of aid or comfort came. Aye, there were times when faith alone called each to worship with his own, when rabbi, priest, and minister knelt down with one in grief, and times when each would draw apart, to comfort many a lonely heart, or strengthen at the battle's eve some faltering boy's belief. But one must ask the question, who was Catholic, Protestant, or Jew, unless the holy vessels on the altar had been laid? For in the ship's life weal and woe there was no outer sign to show that form of worship, rite, or prayer the slightest difference made. Below the waters, cold and green, within a German submarine, a youthful listening sailor stirred. The sound of moving ship he'd heard. He rose and to his captain spoke. A periscope the surface broke. The captain turned it left and right, and peering through the slotted sight, he waited for the ship to pass across his little field of glass. The Dorchester came into view. To battle stations went the crew. Fire 1 was ordered, then fire 2. From tubes shot out with flaming breath went 2 shrewd instruments of death. Controlled by many a wise device, they sped upon a course precise to sink their targets, ship and men. Good, said the captain. Down again. Upon the decks of ships are chests, in which are lifebelts stored, against the time when men must trust themselves into the sea. At such a chest each chaplain stayed, to calm and hearten boys afraid, and pass them belts to hold them up till rescued they could be. But some too frightened were to leap, they would not risk the raging deep, convinced that death awaited all who ventured overside. Trust God, they heard the chaplain say, trust God and go, it's death to stay. And thus was many a youngster saved who otherwise had died. No talk of Catholic or Jew, no question Protestant are you, but this, your belt, God keep you safe, no sign of inner fear. 4 humble men of God, just then in peril with their fellow man, who dared to keep the faith they taught when death was drawing near. Then when the last lifebelt was gone, and still were others who had none, here, said each chaplain of the sea, take mine, your life 'twill spare. And with this last brave service done, they stood together 4 as one, and linked their arms and bowed their heads and spoke a final prayer. From bow to stern the vessel shook, those in the sea who turned to look, just as the ship went down beheld 4 men of God who stood, arms linked together and at prayer. 4 men of God undaunted there, who dared to die for their belief in ties of brotherhood. Oh, there are times when hate and strife stain all that's best in human life, when bitterness so fills men's hearts that hatred seems their trade. But against war's horror, filth and crime will shine for all remaining time the glory of united faiths which 4 brave men displayed.